Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and today we're going to be previewing the Oklahoma City Thunder Minnesota Timberwolves Game 4. This is going to be a fun one tonight. Look, I definitely did not expect the blowout we saw the last game in Game 3. The Thunder losing by 40 plus definitely was not on my bingo card for what we saw in that Game 3. I'll tell you guys what, I thought Minnesota was going to win because for me, Minnesota, it's hard to go down 0-3 back-to-back years in the conference finals. They did it last year. The problem last year was with Minnesota mainly is, and this is why they had poor success in last year's conference finals, is they lost the first two games in the wrong way. You'd rather lose the first two games in a series on the road than at home. Because you look at last year, they lost the first two games in Minnesota against Dallas. That puts you in the position where you've got to go on the road now and win two road games. They only won one, and then the series went back to Minnesota and Dallas won 5. Now, but this situation, you lose two games on the road. Now you've got to go back at home. Every day of the week, I'd rather win two games. I'd rather be down 0-2 having the next two games at home than be down 0-2 and have the next two games on the road. And that's what Minnesota had last year. This is what Minnesota has this year. And it would be embarrassing to go down 0-3 two straight seasons. And Anthony Edwards is too good of a player. And I know the Thunder are a great team, but Anthony Edwards is too good of a player to go down 0-3. And so I was not shocked at all that Minnesota won that game last night. But where I was shocked is the beatdown that Oklahoma City took. And that's where I think they bounce back tonight. I'm not predicting OKC to win. I might later on, and I'll get into my prediction in just a minute. But I think OKC is going to be competitive. Here's what I am predicting tonight. This is going to be the first real competitive game of this series. Last game, Minnesota beat them down. Really, I think the first two games, OKC beat Minnesota down. I think Minnesota might have been competitive in the third quarter, but we have not seen a competitive fourth quarter in this series. You look at the Eastern Conference Finals, there have been competitive fourth quarters in all three games of that series. The first three games of this series, we have not seen that. And I'm predicting we see that tonight. Because here's what I see tonight. I don't see OKC getting their butts kicked like they did last night. I think if they lose this game tonight, it's going to be competitive. And I see the same thing with Minnesota. They're not getting crushed in their home court. So I see this as a very close and tight game tonight. I think it's going to be a good one. I really do. Game is on ESPN tonight at 7:30, back on ESPN. Last game was on ABC. The first two games were on ESPN. Starting lineups should be the same for both teams. OKC, even though they played poorly, you're not going to switch up You're not going to switch up your starting group. I know they put Hardenstein on the bench to start off the second half, but that was to try to get a lineup that could bring out 3-point shots. It's going to be the same starting lineup: Hardenstein, Chet at the 4 and 5, Dort at the 3. Williams at the 3, Dort at the 2, and Shea at the 1. Then for the Timberwolves, Mike Conley. Obviously they're not going to switch their starting lineup when they just got. They just absolutely crushed OKC. So Conley, Edwards, McDaniels, Gobert, and Randall. So, look, I think Minnesota, what they need to do is just do what you did last game. The beatdown is you're not gonna get that same beatdown again. They're not gonna get that in the rest of the series. No one's gonna beat Oklahoma City the way Minnesota did. Maybe ever. That is this team. You look at the rest of this series, if OKC beats Minnesota in this series, it moves on. Not Indiana or New York, not Minnesota the rest of the series beating them like that again. You might get a solid blow, like a 15, 20-point win or something like that, but you're not going to see that again. So, if you're Minnesota, just play well like you did. Get off to the right start like you did last game. If they play the way they did last game, maybe not as good as they did last game, but just good, and OKC steps it up a little bit, Minnesota should win in a close game, I believe. I think Minnesota wins this game tonight by an area of 3 to 5 points, and we see the first close game and the first close fourth quarter of this series is my prediction. And I say Minnesota ties this series up at 2 apiece. But I also know that there's a really good chance the Thunder can really win this game tonight and tie the series. But I think Minnesota right now, they have all the advantage in this series right now. Not in this series, but going into this game tonight, they have all the advantage with the performance that Oklahoma City just had. And they have the confidence right now after what happened in the last game. So I'm going with Minnesota, but I think it's a close game. They're not going to get what they got last game. Minnesota's going to win, in my opinion. It's going to be close. It's going to be competitive, and they'll win. Give me your predictions in the comment section, though, and peace out.